Coates for being here. Dan Coates is one of the finest people I've ever known in public service, and I have tremendous respect for his integrity and professionalism. Together we lead the National Insider Threat Task Force that was established in 2011. This task force has an important role to play and one we are taking seriously. Progress has been made, and we intend to reach new levels of effectiveness. First, let me say that I strongly agree with the President and condemn in the strongest terms the staggering number of leaks undermining the ability of our government to protect this country. Just yesterday, we saw reports in the media about conversations the President had with foreign leaders. No one is entitled to surreptitiously fight to advance battles in the media by revealing sensitive government information. No government can be effective when its leaders cannot discuss sensitive matters in confidence or talk freely in confidence with foreign leaders. We're here today to talk about the dramatic growth in the number of unauthorized disclosures of classified national security information in the past several months. This includes leaks to both the media and, in some cases, even unauthorized disclosures to our foreign adversaries. Referrals for investigations of classified leaks to the Department of Justice from our intelligence agencies have exploded. In the first 6 months of this administration, the Department of Justice has already received nearly as many criminal referrals involving unauthorized disclosures of classified information as we received in the previous 3 years combined. Classified information, by definition, is information that, if disclosed, would do harm to national security. As Director Coates will discuss, leaks are incredibly damaging to our intelligence mission and capabilities. Simply put, these leaks hurt our country. All of us in government can do better. The first requirement is for discipline within all our agencies of the government. To prevent these leaks, every agency and Congress has to do better. We are taking a stand. This culture of leaking must stop. Furthering this goal today, we are here to announce some steps being taken and underway by the National Insider Threat Task Force to ensure the government's first priority to protect this country and her citizens is not undermined by the very people who've been entrusted to protect it. While the Department of Justice does not discuss ongoing investigations or confirm specific matters, it is important for the American people and those who might be thinking about leaking classified or sensitive information to know that criminals who would illegally use their access to our most sensitive information to endanger our national security are in fact being investigated and will be prosecuted. Since January, the department has more than tripled the number of active leak investigations compared to the number pending at the end of the last administration. And we've already charged 4 people with unlawfully disclosing classified material or with concealing contacts with federal officers. Soon after I arrived here in February, I initiated a review of our leak investigations and prosecutions. I reviewed how these cases were being referred and handled and was concerned with what I found. Too few referrals, too few investigations with the sufficient resources dedicated to them. I concluded the unprecedented rise in leaks required an increase of additional support for more investigations and to speed up existing investigations. Our system here relies on the intelligence community making a determination of whether classified material has been improperly handled or released and then sending referrals to us at the Department of Justice. This means it's vital for the intelligence community to know that the Department of Justice is committed to investigating and prosecuting these referrals. And when few investigations take place, criminal leaks may occur more often, and a culture of leaking can take hold. So today, I have this message for our friends in the intelligence community. The Department of Justice is open for business, and I have this warning for would-be leakers: don't do it. For the past several months, we've already made changes and are seriously ramping up our efforts. First, I directed my fine deputy, Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, whose district in Maryland encompasses NSA headquarters and who has personally led investigations of this kind, and the investigator FBI Director Christopher Wray, to oversee all classified leak investigations, actively monitor the progress of each and every case. Secondly, I directed the National Security Division of the Department of Justice and our U.S. attorneys to prioritize cases involving unauthorized disclosures. The department will not hesitate to bring lawful and appropriate criminal charges against those who would abuse the public trust. Third, as I have said, we tripled the number of active leak investigations. In response, the FBI has increased resources devoted to leak cases and created a new counterintelligence unit to manage these cases. Simultaneously, this department is reviewing policies that impact leak investigations. And I've listened to our career investigators, FBI agents and others, and our prosecutors about how to most successfully investigate and prosecute these matters. At their suggestion, one of the things we are doing is reviewing policies affecting media subpoenas. We respect the important role that the press plays and will give them respect, but it is not unlimited. They cannot place lives at risk with impunity. We must balance the press's role with protecting our national security and the lives of those who serve in the intelligence community, the armed forces, and all law-abiding Americans. Finally, here is what I want to tell every American today. This nation must end this culture of leaks. We will investigate and seek to bring criminals to justice. We will not allow rogue anonymous sources with security clearances to sell out our country. These cases to investigate and prosecute are never easy, but cases will be made and leakers will be held accountable. All of us in government and in every agency in Congress must do better. The first requirement is personal discipline. Education and repetition within our departments and agencies will make a difference. Prevention is what is required. An investigation of a leak is too late, really. The damage is done. Thank you all, and I would now recognize our Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates.
Good morning, Mr. Attorney General. Thank you very much for your leadership and inviting me to join you here today and working with you on the task force. You and I have served together in the United States Senate. We've served together now in the Trump administration. And today we stand together to address an issue which both of us strongly believe needs to be addressed using the authorities of our respective agencies. Over the past few months, I have had the privilege of working with the dedicated men and women of the intelligence community. I have seen firsthand the work that they do tirelessly and without fanfare to protect our country. I stand here today as their leader to express our grave concern that unauthorized disclosures of classified material and damaging our mission and jeopardizing the safety and security of the American public. In the last several years, the U.S. intelligence community has experienced some of the worst compromises of classified information in our nation's history. Those disclosures have been disseminated to both the media and to our foreign adversaries. Let me be absolutely clear this morning. These disclosures have resulted in a major threat to our national security. They endanger the men and women of the intelligence community, the armed services, and those who serve overseas. They give our adversaries knowledge of our activities. They impede our ability to share information with our allies. There is also a real cost in dollars to compensate for blown programs. And most importantly, as I have previously noted, these unauthorized disclosures endanger the safety and security of Americans across the country. I'd like to point out, however, that these national security breaches do not just originate in the intelligence community. They come from a wide range of sources within the government, including the executive branch and including the Congress. Now, if someone who has access to classified material has legitimate concerns, there are multiple ways for them to put forward a complaint. The IC offers avenues for whistleblowers and protections for those individuals to report concerns without fear of reprisal. And there are other legal options available outside of those channels, including notifying the congressional intelligence committees or even their own congressional representative or senator in Congress. Having said this, it is important to stress that any disclosure of unauthorized channels, any disclosure outside of authorized channels is a criminal offense, and we will simply not tolerate the illegal release of classified information. The National Counterintelligence and Security Center, which is part of my office, is currently carrying out a review of the policies that are in place, guiding IC agencies' processes for investigating and reporting cases of unauthorized disclosures. In addition, the NCSC is studying security clearance procedures to look for any inconsistencies in the processes for issuing security clearances to all IC employees, including government officials, contractors, detailees, etc. If inconsistencies are found, NCSC will make recommendations to strengthen the security clearance process, and this can be discussed and will be discussed after we finish our remarks. We will also continue to ensure the federal workforce is clear of the importance of respecting classifications and is fully aware of whistleblower options. And we will work with our counterparts in the executive branch and the Congress to address this issue. Let me conclude by saying that we are prepared to take all necessary steps to, one, identify individuals who illegally expose and disclose classified information. Secondly, forward information about their deeds to the FBI for full investigation. And we will work closely with the Department of Justice to support prosecution of any person who makes an unauthorized disclosure of classified material. Fourth and finally, as the Director of National Intelligence, I am also empowered to take administrative action within the IC to deal with individuals who break the law. And let me be clear, I will not hesitate to exercise those authorities. Anyone who engages in these criminal acts is betraying the intelligence community and the American people. We feel the pain of those betrayals intensely, and I can assure you that I will do everything in my power as the Director of National Intelligence to hold these individuals accountable. For those out there who may be listening or watching these announcements, or who will later learn about what has been said here this morning, understand this. If you improperly disclose classified information, we will find you. We will investigate you. We will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, and you will not be happy with the result.
Gentlemen, are you saying you will jail journalists? Mr. Attorney General, do you plan to prosecute journalists?
A show of force from the Director of National Intelligence and the United States Attorney General announcing their efforts so far to crack down on leakers following a series of embarrassing leaks that have hit Donald Trump and the national security apparatus as well as the internal workings of the White House. Hi, everyone. I am Rick Klein, Political Director at ABC News, and I'm joined right now by Deputy Political Director Mary Alice Parks. And Mary Alice, I was watching this really with one central question. Is there any new policy here, or is this just demonstrating to President Trump that they're on the case?
You're exactly right. I kept listening for details about something new they might be doing, but I think you were right that this was more of a show of force. It was all of them standing up there to say that there are cops on this beat. We will find you was the message, and we will prosecute you to the full extent of the law. It was a show of force and a bunch of threats, frankly, from the nation's top law enforcement.
We did hear from the Attorney General about a culture of leaks that he said has taken hold. Let's take a look at what the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, said just moments ago.
This nation must end this culture of leaks. We will investigate and seek to bring criminals to justice. We will not allow rogue anonymous sources with security clearances to sell out our country. These cases, to investigate and prosecute, are never easy, but cases will be made and leakers will be held accountable. All of us in government and in every agency in Congress must do better. The first requirement is personal discipline. Education and repetition within our departments and agencies will make a difference. Prevention is what is required. An investigation of a leak is too late, really. The damage is done.
And the Attorney General saying there's been an explosion of referrals in the first 6 months of the Trump administration. We're joined now by ABC News White House correspondent Cecilia Vega, who was in the room. And Cecilia, if I'm not mistaken, I heard you try to get a question in about what this actually means. What were you trying to get answered?
Well, I was trying to ask if the Attorney General was saying that he would prosecute journalists in this, or even, in fact, jail journalists. I said it both ways because he made a very clear message to reporters covering these leaks here that they would be subject to subpoenas. We will give, I'm reading my notes here, we will give respect to journalists, but it is not unlimited. We must balance the press's role with the security of this country. That is a pretty stark message coming out of this Department of Justice right now from the Attorney General, and different than Eric Holder in the past administration, who had vowed to essentially take a more hands-off approach to leaks in that administration. But look, Rick, I mean, this is a chronic problem for the Trump administration. This press conference here in the Department of Justice comes just a day after those bombshell transcripts were leaked of President Trump's private phone calls with two world leaders. We saw after that came out even an outcry from Democrats on Capitol Hill who said this is unacceptable. The president is entitled and should be allowed to have private conversations so that world leaders and others do not feel confined and have to censor their conversations for fear of these getting out. But, you know, you and I will both agree not all leaks are bad leaks, right? Journalists could not do their jobs if there were not leaks. We could not cover democracy and a fair press if there were not leaks. And certainly there seems to be a sea change and a tone change coming out of this administration saying that they will crack down on this. And the message was crystal clear from DNI Director Jeff Coates. We will find you, we will investigate you, we will prosecute you.
And Cecilia, leaks have been in the news a lot recently, the last couple of weeks, but not all leaks are created equal. You have national security leaks, like you mentioned, these incredible transcripts that were revealed from the 6-month-old conversations between the president and world leaders. You also have more gossipy leaks. Anthony Scaramucci, the short-lived communications director, says he knew who the leakers were. That's a different kind of leaking. What is this aimed at? Are they making a distinction today in who they say they're going to be going after?
Well, they're not. Yes and no, right? They seem to be talking about big picture leaks here, national security, the illegal leaking of classified intelligence, and that has happened, and that has happened with regularity inside this White House, to the astonishment, I think, of watchers of Washington, and certainly those inside this White House. This administration, this team of officials here, called these people who are behind these leaks criminals, and they were speaking directly to people with classified, credentials to access classified materials, saying, if you are thinking about this, don't even do it. We will come after you with the full force of the law, and you will not like the results. This is a White House, as you just said, that is as leaky as a sieve, and you cannot, I don't think that anyone will be able to rein this in when you were talking about warring factions within this White House, and people basically who have knives in their backs and are looking over their shoulders in a gossipy way, but two totally different types of leaks that we're talking about, and I don't know that we will see the any of them. Perhaps a threat like this may get some people to think twice about leaking classified intelligence. I don't expect this to stop the more gossipy leaks that we have seen in this administration.
And Cecilia, I know you're going to go back to get some more questions answered in a moment, but before we let you go, these leaks have got to be driving President Trump bananas. He has been decrying them publicly as well as privately. How much of this was designed by the Attorney General and the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, basically to serve the president and tell the president before he goes on vacation, we're on the job right now?
The timing of this is not lost on anybody here in Washington, that the Attorney General did this announcement today before the president goes on vacation, as the president has been very vocal about complaining about these leaks. And let us not forget, as the president has been publicly bashing this Attorney General, calling him weak on a number of different fronts. So certainly this is may move Jeff Sessions up a rung or two in terms of getting in the president's good graces. This is something the president has been demanding very vocally. Just last night, the president said that he at that rally in West Virginia wanted to crack down on leaks, and in fact, he called on prosecutors to go after Hillary Clinton's emails. So it remains to be seen whether which cases this Department of Justice will pursue. You know, one thing, Rick, that struck me, they didn't name the leaks that they say are putting this nation's security at risk. And I will go back and like to ask them about that, because they laid out a pretty strong case for this country being in jeopardy for literally, they said, lives being on the line. But they haven't laid out which ones we're talking about here. So are we talking about the transcripts that leaked yesterday? Are we talking about other very significant classified intelligence leaks that have come out over the course of the last 6 months? And also, they haven't talked about how they plan to change the culture and the reasons behind that this White House has seen a significant number of leaks in it as compared to the past administration. They said that they've had in the last 6 months more classified leak reports than they have in the past 3 years combined. So we're talking about a cultural, institutional problem that is plaguing this White House. It remains to be seen how they can get that under control.
Not to mention what the president himself appears to have told foreign leaders in some of those private conversations. Cecilia Vega, our thanks to you. Get back on the beat. We appreciate it. Mary Alice, I want to pick up on one other point. We heard from Jeff Sessions when he talked about this culture of leaking. One of the things he said is that his investigation of these prosecutions is that there wasn't nearly enough resources dedicated to this. To my ears, at least, it sounded like Jeff Sessions was saying the Obama Justice Department is in part to blame for the Trump administration leaks because they weren't focused enough on the leakers. That was hardly the reputation of the Obama Justice Department. They went after leakers and journalists pretty aggressively.
Absolutely. The difference was that they did it privately. They prosecuted leakers actually more than any other administration had previously, but the president didn't talk about it. It took place behind closed doors. He definitely wasn't taking to Twitter to publicly fume and threaten. So really, it wasn't that the Obama administration wasn't plagued by leaks, though obviously not to this extent. And it wasn't that they didn't dedicate resources or prosecute leakers, but I think it was different in how it was handled, publicly versus privately, and also different in sort of that cultural question that you guys were talking about. You know, the Obama administration did work to have solid relationships with the intelligence community. It didn't always work. Obviously, Edward Snowden was the biggest example, a really historic example from the Obama years, a real rift between what the intelligence community felt like they were being asked to do and what the president was saying he was doing on the, transparently to the U.S. Obviously, people like Edward Snowden felt like there was a huge, huge disconnect there. But he worked to at least try to build a positive relationship, whereas we've watched President Trump since the beginning of his presidency just insult at time after time after time these intelligence workers, say that he doesn't believe what's coming out of their reports, he doesn't believe their work, and that only furthers this culture of distrust and frustration. Some of these leaks have clearly been from members of the intelligence community who want their work out there, and they don't think that this White House, this president, believes them and will share what they think is the truth.
And the other element to that, Mary Alice, as you know, is that President Trump has been of two minds on leaks generally. Clearly, as president, he doesn't like them. But his White House, first of all, gives out anonymous information and wants the people to be quoted without that. The culture there of staff infighting certainly has fomented that. And this is a man who, as a candidate, said, I love WikiLeaks. And as a private citizen, famously used pseudonyms to leak information about himself and about others to gossip columnists. So in terms of a culture that's set, it feels like they're fighting a bit of an uphill battle.
Absolutely. The more that you don't answer questions in a White House briefing or give misleading responses on very basic questions, the more you have people in these agencies that feel personally obligated to get some information out. You know, people leak because they feel like there's a public, there's a need to inform the public. They want the public to pressure the administration. They want to derail a possible decision coming down the pike from the administration. And so, again, I think you're right that unless this White House starts actively working to strengthen relationships in the intelligence community or work to be more transparent with the press, more transparent with the American people about some of these key issues from Russia to their military plans to possible executive orders, I don't see how these leaks don't stop. They come when individuals in the intelligence community or elsewhere in the government feel a moral obligation to get something out there.
And finally, Mary Alice, I think it's impossible to extricate this discussion from the broader political situation this White House finds itself in. As Cecilia mentioned, the president is feuding with Jeff Sessions publicly, saying he's been weak on the Hillary Clinton investigation and he was wrong to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. Even Dan Coats, the director of national intelligence, is a witness, a potential witness for Bob Mueller, and already talked to congressional committees about the Russia probe and about potential efforts to cover that up. These are two men that work for President Trump, but at times have a very tense relationship, particularly when you have a president who has been belittling FBI agents as well as intelligence agents who work for these two men.
Right. This cabinet is trying desperately to say they are doing the president's work. They are returning to basics. They're getting things done that he wants them to, that they are coming to work every day. And like you heard Jeff Sessions say, the U.S. Justice Department is open for business, as if that was a question, in some ways acknowledging whether that was a question. These are cabinet members that know that the president is worried about all of these headlines about his administration, and they want to reassure him that they are doing their job as he is asked.
That's right, and a lot of questions still about what this actually means in practice. Mary Alice Parks, thank you for joining. That does it for now. I am Rick Klein, political director at ABC News. Thanks for watching.